This memorial here is a tragic story. Alright, so we're going to turn left at Finnegan's Way, Coomera Rivers State School. And I can remember Finnegan's Way was just a little one lane pretty much. If your car come in the opposite direction, one or the other had to pull over. And I can remember coming out here doing search warrants for people that were growing marijuana crops or hydros in their house. A lot of old Queensland style houses that had been on acreage and you couldn't see them from the road. You had to go 50, 100 metres down a dirt driveway. And now look at it. Well, this primary school, I can remember doing search warrants where this is here, on houses, looking for drugs, stolen cars, stolen property. And now it's suburbia. Morning. They do a good job, those ladies, keeping the kids safe. And I can remember turning right here and then right again and going up around the corner, only about a couple of 100 metres, and there was unfortunately a murder committed, a domestic violence incident. A man just completely lost it and killed his wife in the middle of the day. She'd come home from shopping and they had a verbal, and he ended up stabbing her to death. And he had two young kids, so I think they were about 8 and 6. They were in the house. They weren't hurt. And after he killed his wife, he sat down and waited till the police came and arrested him. Very sad. And this roundabout here used to be the end of the Finnegan's Way. Used to be a tard up until then, but it was only, like I said before, it was only one vehicle wide. And just around about here, this was an old quarry, and it was just all dirt, and they used to bring trail bikes out here on the weekend, and people would ride their trail bikes around, and the developers were starting to peg out all these streets on the left. The trail bike riders would knock all the pegs out and all the tapes and all the measurements. So the developers complained to the police, and we came, and the trail bike riders would see us and they'd take off into the bush. And we got to the end of Finnegan's Way where the tar finished, just so I mentioned back at that roundabout, and it was all dirt and it had a lot of rain and it was mud. And Hugh saw these vehicles and he gunned the police car onto the dirt, not realising it was mud, and the car just went right down to the axles. That was it. The people on the bikes, the trail bike riders, they were about 50, 100 metres away and just sat on their bikes and laughed. And all I could do was laugh. And we got out of the car, and luckily we could, between the two of us pushing it, we were able to reverse the car. Stuck in the mud, I thought, well, here's a tow truck, but we managed to get it out, and it was covered in mud, and we were covered in mud. We had to get back into the car, and it was just caked mud all over the car. It was terrible. I remember we had to go back to the police station. We had to get big hunks of tissue paper and newspapers to pick all the mud out and clean it as best we can. We literally had to hose ourselves down in our uniforms from the waist down. We just had to hose. It's the only way we could get the mud off. Funny things you think about. I can remember this house here on the left with all of the junk in the front yard. That's been there for as long as I can remember. And who owns it, but it's just a residue of junk. Yeah, must be owned by a company or something. But I know behind it, if you follow a dirt track down there at the beginning, and you go down for about half a kilometre on the dirt track, and it turns into cane fields. And they go for square kilometres, miles, just heaps and heaps and heaps of cane fields, sugar cane. And I remember we were told that, and there's a house down there as well, just sort of right plunk, right in the middle of the cane fields. There's this old Queenslander. So I remember going down there and doing a search warrant one day. We're told, oh, they've got a crop growing. You'll easily find it. Just follow the dirt road down. You'll come to the cane field. And so we followed the dirt road down. Came to the cane field. Came to the house. Not a hope in hell. It could have been anywhere. If you had a drone, this is pre-drone days, if you had a drone, you'd be able to fly a drone and you'd probably find it within a minute. But there's no way we could. Not a hope in hell. I remember the people in the house, they must have known we were coming because they were all sitting out in the veranda drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. Just smiled at us. Very cooperative because I think they were quite confident they knew nothing was going to be found. We never found anything. And this bridge here, straight ahead, it's got a little dog leg to the left. And I remember coming here, a guy had gone pretty much straight ahead. That Armco railing on the right there wasn't there, and he ended up in the river. And this memorial here is a tragic story. And it's in memory of a young 13-year-old, and she was a child in care. And she was murdered by her, I don't know, stepfather, I suppose. Apparently she had had sexual relations with his son at the care house they lived in, and I'm not sure whether she was pregnant or she was threatening to dob the son in. But anyway, the father killed her, murdered her, and came down and dumped the body in that river. And anyway, the police, or someone found her remains. The father was eventually charged with murder, and the son and the wife knew about it and helped cover it up, so they were accessories. And anyway, I think the son and the stepmother went to jail. They're out now, and the father, he's probably in for 20 or 30 years. And the car crash that I mentioned, there were a lot of roadworks being done, and on the side of the road it was hot. I remember it must have been summertime, and if you got your wheel off the side of the road, you just kicked up a dust storm. And a fellow was driving along, unfamiliar with the road, and suddenly a car coming the other way kicked up a cloud of dust, and the fellow didn't know where the road, didn't know about the dog leg to the left, so he's gone straight ahead and then realised he's gone off the road, hit the brakes but gone straight into the river. And anyway, the police were called, and I got there, and this guy's standing on the side of the road. He in the middle of calling a tow truck, and we breath tested it completely. He was zero. And as was, he said, oh, I couldn't see, I don't know the road. He said, a cloud of dust, I just assumed the road went straight ahead. And he said, next thing I came out of this cloud of dust and I was in the river. Poor bugger. Anyway, luckily he wasn't hurt.